Ever since that first reveal trailer, the fans have been divided into two groups. One side is plagued by toxic positivity, where the game is just a masterpiece and nothing is ever wrong with anything in the game, and whoever so much as says that something is wrong, then they're just some sort of phobic, and that is why they're critiquing the game. And the other side is just so fed up with seeing favorite franchises sacrificed at the altar of DEI that they have gone ballistic on the Veilguard and all the new changes. So I have to be objective here and include myself in this group as well. And while in my defense I have tried to be impartial, seeing as to both Dragon Age and Mass Effect have been childhood favorite games, I could not help but lose my temper as well when I saw yet another game get disrespected like this.
What? Okay, fine, I'm cool, I'm fine.
But this is me trying to be level-headed about the recent leaks for the game. So let's go over the alleged leaks together, but this time let's just try to be objective about things, because by not being objective with our critiques, we only end up giving ammunition to the toxic positivity crowd to just turn around and disregard everything else we say is wrong with the game. Something that just ends up further dividing and hurting both sides. Nure or Nuhe, I really hope I'm pronouncing this right by the way, has done it again. Her videos on Dragon Age the Veilguard have been nothing short of objective and also very funny, but the other day she dropped a bomb in the form of an interview with a playtester. Of course she did say herself that there is no real way to actually verify all the information she got until the game is actually out. However, knowing modern BioWare and what we do know so far of the game, none of these sound too far-fetched or unrealistic in my opinion.
I expect nothing, and I'm still let down.
I do think, however, that some of these might have been changed due to Baldur's Gate's success, something that both Nure and the playtester also confirmed. So first things first. The game is super woke, pronouns are in your face, the Kunari companion literally introduces themselves with immersion-breaking modern language, I identify myself as non-binary. I mean, I can't really say I'm surprised, we have already discussed how in your face these political views of these political activists that are just masquerading as studio developers really are, because everything about this game, everything that they have shown us so far, everything that has been discussed so far, just reeks of modern day political rhetoric and political correctness. Romancers were, and still may be, gender locked unless of course you choose a pronoun other than he, him, you must be pansexual, or you were, or may well still be, restricted to two romance options, Nev and Harding, while other choices may romance anyone. This might have changed due to Baldur's Gate 3 success and influence. So this is the point where I actually think that they might actually have changed it, not only due to Baldur's Gate 3 success, but because they have already alienated all the old fans of the franchise. So to alienate even more and tell people that, you know what, you can only play as a diverse character. If you're straight, just don't even bother with the game, because no one is going to play it. I wouldn't put it past BioWare at this point, but if this is still true, then the game is totally doomed. Another point that didn't surprise me at all was that Solas is sidelined hard, made into a minor character with little importance or development until suddenly important at the end of the game. And that ending is baffling and not in a good way, but no spoilers have been revealed. So this wasn't really surprising to me. I knew Solas was sidelined and he was disregarded the minute they changed the name from the Dread Wolf to the Veilguard, and we already knew that Solas was just there as a ploy to lure old fans of the franchise back in. But since they have decided to do this clean slate and go to Northern Thedas, where everything is supposedly very new for everyone, I'm not really surprised that they didn't pay Solas as much attention as they would have had they actually done some fan service for the game. The story is allegedly also disappointment after disappointment. The facial animation is Andromeda all over again and plastic, which I assume is a lot of my face is tired quality. Again, this really didn't surprise me at all. This is Bioware we're talking about after all. The animation has always been a bit plastic and iffy to say the least. So I'm not surprised about the quality of the animation at all. And I can't say I'm surprised about the story being a disappointment after disappointment either. That is for the simple reason of, A, they already told us that none of our choices really matter, so this story has none of the qualities that we knew and loved in the Dragon Age universe anyway. And B, we already know from Andromeda that Bioware will promise us one thing, and then when you actually play the game, none of the things that they mentioned are actually in the game. So I'm not really surprised about these two bullet points either. The next bullet point is what really pissed me off, because it says that the Inquisitor and Inquisition is corrupt and may not be of any help even if you didn't disband it. Choices don't matter, it's Mass Effect 3 all over again. And this really pissed me off because I was more mad at myself than I was at them, because I remember playing Inquisition and just staring at the screen for God knows how long before actually deciding. I was really torn about what to do, and even though it said that if you choose to not disband the Inquisition, it might get corrupted, I thought it was a better choice because I would have more resources to go after Solas. But now, none of that matters, because I remember being so torn. I just had 2 saves, foolishly thinking that, once the next installment comes out, I'll try both to see the consequences of both choices. But, well, I guess they made a clown out of me here, because none of the previous choices really matter anyway, and the Inquisitor and Inquisition is going to be corrupt either way, so yeah, that was pointless. The next bullet point, I can't really say that I really cared about this, to be honest, and I'll explain myself in a bit. But the next bullet point is basically that Rook is sidelined, his back or her backstory is wasted, is just a guy in a bar, and it's very much diminished. And I get where people are coming from with this complaint, because we're used to Dragon Age Origins, where depending on the race and the class you chose for your character, their backstory would be completely different. But I understand that could be a lot of work for studios, and not every game can do that, that's fine. But I think that the main issue here is that people already had this very off feeling about the companions and the entire group as a whole, from the reveal trailer where it looked like Fortnite made by Disney or Marvel, to the companion reveals where everyone was suddenly so quirky and funny and awkward. You could just tell that this is going to be a Guardians of the Galaxy from Temu kind of group. And the fact that Rook is just going to be a guy in a bar, for me, I think it confirmed for people that this is going to be one of those pretentious and, quirky and so fun kind of groups. Like Andromeda, remember when everyone would just keep throwing one-liners around thinking they were funny, when in reality, all of those one-liners were just cringy. I don't remember laughing, not even once, during Andromeda. I think it was Liam that kept throwing around supposedly funny one-liners, especially during combat.
I think I really pissed that one off. Maybe because I shot him in the face.
And?
I threw a rock at him.
And all they did was just make me cringe. I never once laughed during the entire game. So I get why some people don't like this at all, because it could potentially spell trouble for the entire game. Because there were parts in Andromeda where they were literally unplayable. The humor just wasn't hitting at all, and it felt like you had to force yourself through scenes. The next thing that was revealed was that the tester feedback was essentially ignored. The boss said, "It's very good feedback, but I can't send it to them, the devs. It's very good, but basically you can't talk about how the woke stuff is making the game worse. It's not something you can talk about, even if it is ruining the game." Did this surprise me? Nope, not at all. Obviously, the they-thems, essentially the devs, would not want to hear that their political views are ruining the game, obviously, because in their minds they have the moral high ground for some reason. So no matter what everyone says, they are the ones in the right, and of course their political views are not ruining the game. You are the bigot and the one that's discriminating against them. Obviously their political views have nothing to do with that. And not only that, we already know that the raving reviews that the game has got so far have been essentially paid for. And yes, of course, I know EA didn't directly pay the reviewers, but their trips were paid for, and some have become partners, so every time you use their username upon purchasing the game, those reviewers will get a portion of the profits.
If you haven't pre-ordered yet, make sure to use my code KaylaElizabeth to give me a tiny kickback at no extra cost to you.
And if you are looking to pre-order Veilguard or purchase any of the Dragon Age games on the EA app, why not throw in the code GIL during checkout? I'll get a small kickback from it, and while it is not a coupon code, you do get the peace of mind that a small percent of your money is going to help pay my rent and not another CEO's facelift.
So I don't understand people who say that reviewers were not paid, because how is that not paying them? So we already know that BioWare is not conducting an ethical review of their product, so the tester feedback being ignored doesn't really surprise me either. The next bullet point is about the fact that Grey Warden Davrin, a newcomer who never finished his training, gets to influence and make important decisions for the Grey Warden solely because he is a person of color, gets to decide everything. Once again, I can't really say I'm surprised, because we already know that diversity is at the forefront over at BioWare, but we have to be very, very careful about this specific point, however, because there could be another reason why Davrin, even though he's a newcomer, he's the one to decide what happens with the Grey Wardens. And until we know that, we can't just chalk it up to, oh, he's just a person of color and then that's why BioWare let him do it. Because then we just give food to the toxic positivity crowd to come around and tell us that, oh, you know, you're just mad because Davrin is a person of color. See, I told you were a bigot and a racist or whatever. So until we know this for sure, I'm going to reserve judgment until the game is out, because again, I do not want to feed the trolls and give them an excuse to, you know, say things like, oh, I knew it, you were a racist all along, I was right, I was correct. And that will then give them all the ammunition they need to just disregard the rest of our arguments and just chalk everything up to us being racist, bigots, or phobics, or whatever. The next point really didn't bother me either, because I'm just used to it, because the next thing that was discussed was that the segment of gameplay in the Fade is a boring walking simulator with just some fetch quests. Completely wasted opportunity. But I mean, hasn't that always been the case with the Fade throughout the 3 installments? Well, maybe with the exception of Inquisition, because I do have to admit that the Fade parts in Inquisition were a bit more interesting, because we got to learn more about the Fade and the spirits and whether Justinia was really a spirit or just Justinia herself. It was very intriguing and it gave you food for thought, you know, about how the Fade works and stuff. So, the Fade being a walking simulator is just meh, you know, I'm used to it. And it would be hypocritical of me to say that, oh, the Fade was incredible in Dragon Age Origins. Well, it was. That section of the game was pretty incredible the first time I played it, but for replays, I just use the skip the Fade mod nowadays, because I really don't want to go through all that again. Do I wish they had handled the Fade a bit better, like Inquisition, for example? Yes, of course. But does it really bother me that the Fade is a walking simulator? I wouldn't say so, because that's what I'm used to now after Dragon Age Origins, the Fade just being a part of the game that's just there. It either is just boring or it is kind of intriguing because we get to learn more about how the Fade works. But, you know, this doesn't really bother me that much at the end of the day. The next point is that other major characters like Varic turned into mere advisors and pushed to the back of the story. Again, I can't say this surprised me at all. We already know, because they have made it abundantly clear that they want nothing to do with the previous games or the story or the lore or the characters. They just want a clean slate so they can do whatever they want. So I wasn't surprised with this at all. I remember there was a point when people were concerned that Varic might die. I was never concerned because I knew that BioWare does not have the backbone to do something like that. They are desperate for old fans to come back, even though they have completely disregarded us and our choices. They want us to come back so they can make a quick buck with this game. So I was never worried about whether Varic would survive the attack from Solas, but I was worried about how they were going to treat both Solas and Varic. And I think that these 2 bullet points, this and the fact that Solas is sidelined, it's just... it was no surprise to me. It just proved to me that, I was right all along. They're just going to disregard them as well, because they have disregarded us in the first place. And lastly, the last thing they talked about is that it's so far removed from Origins that it's crazy that it's in the same universe. This is the end of BioWare, the interview concludes. Final nail in the coffin of a once great studio and franchise. I don't think that this was a surprise for anyone. We already knew that this has nothing to do with the franchise, the universe, and especially Origins since the beginning, since that first reveal trailer. So I don't think that anyone was surprised by that at all. So of course we will know whether these are true or how many of these are true once the game is out. But I don't think that these surprise anyone. Even if they will be in the game, I don't think anyone will be surprised, because just when you think that BioWare has hit rock bottom, they just pull out a shovel and just start shoveling themselves even further down. So at this point, I will not be surprised if all of these are actually in the game.